have my face on the thing before you.
Well, you're talking right now live, Jeff, so you can have your face
Okay.
on if you cancel your screen share. But welcome everyone for the final PowerShell week broadcast here. I've got Jeff Alexander, technical evangelist for Microsoft, and he's come off a long trip from the US. So, Jeff, thanks very much for making time for us. You're always really supportive of the community. And yeah, I'll hand it over to you and looking forward to learning more about DSC.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I got off a plane. What was it? Monday, I think it was Monday morning. So was in the US for 10 days, hearing all the. It was more of a, I guess, what they call it, a top up of the Kool-Aid, as they say. So it's the geek top up that you get, and there's about 1,200 sessions at this event that we go to, and you can only go see 21. So it's it's
That's a pretty hard scheduling decision.
it's a bit of an overload of information, that's for sure. So anyway, it was mostly hearing about Windows 10 and what's going on with that, and all the other cool stuff that's happening. So that's really cool. I got something actually to share later about Windows 10 and PowerShell.
Excellent. We like
so anyway,
exclusives.
this session is about PowerShell DSC, or if you want the full name for your viewers, it's PowerShell Desired State Configuration, and DevOps. A lot of people have been hearing about DevOps or talking about DevOps and what it actually means, and hopefully we can talk about this whole thing around infrastructure as code. If you had to describe PowerShell Desired State Configuration, it's about infrastructure as code. You probably manage tons of servers in your life as an admin or whatever you want to call it. And how do you actually managing one server at a time, but going to each server is inefficient. So DSC allows us to actually help with that. So I'm going to show a little bit of that, talk about where PowerShells come from in regards to that, and the way we are. So my details are on the slide if people want to get in touch with me afterwards. If they go to my about.me page, that has my blog, it has Facebook, it has LinkedIn, it has YouTube, it has all the stuff that you want to know about. So let's get on and get rolling into this. So if you look at what we're talking about from a DevOps perspective, over on the left-hand side is some dude or girl or whatever. Somebody comes up with this bright idea, right? And they have to get, all of a sudden they say, right, that has to be into operations. We go from the business having this idea to development, writing an app, writing some code, to operations getting an app chucked over the fence to them to deploy it. And often these teams don't work together, right? So what we're talking about is that DSC allows us to move into this notion of what we call continuous service availability plus rapid release cycle plus continuous deployment equals automation. You've been talking about this all week with PowerShell around automation and allowing guys to be able to automate their environments. That's what this is kind of really about. Now, everybody wants to talk about life in the cloud, right? So scale means business is growing. However, more servers equals what? More failures. Scale times complexity exceeds the skill that we actually have. We're talking about cloud right now. Rapid change means you can respond and capture market, so you end up with more change and more failures. And DSC helps you because you can eliminate, or not eliminate, but sort of mitigate against a lot of those. And if you did a poll with your people that are, is there anybody actually online at the moment? I can't see that at this moment.
Yeah, we've just got one or two at the moment. We've sort of had a few scratches all week.
How often do you see change out in your environments today? Change is really the primary cause of outages. So we have to implement some sort of change to our environment, but we don't want to cause an outage, right? So rapid change at scale means you end up with constant failures, okay? So when we talk about PowerShell and the desired state configuration, it came out, when did it come out? A couple of years ago now, I think it was.
Yeah, it came out a little while ago, and then it was sort of in beta in V4. There was not so much beta, I guess, but it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't too polished in version 4, and then version 5 now it's really solid. But I think even in
Yeah.
V3, you could manually load the modules from
So
GitHub.
desired state is the say it, make it be so kind of scenario, right? If you look at the simplest level, it simplifies configuration because at the end of the day, you might have to stand up a web server. Some knucklehead comes along and makes a change to that web server without authorization or whatever, and that kind of happens. And so it simplifies configuration. It prevents the other thing that I say to people, and if you've ever heard of SOE, which is a standard operating environment for client machines, this is an SOE for your servers. All right, so this is preventing configuration drift. Okay, so you have a server that you want to actually be a certain way. And we simplify the configuration of that server by saying, okay, I need to be able to create a configuration file for that server of how they want that server to be. And this is kind of say what it is. This is what I want it to be. Once it's actually done, we want to prevent configuration drift because oftentimes what you see is we get drift on our servers and our data centers. That means that those servers are out of compliance or they're out of the way we want that server to be. So there's flexible deployment options and a way you can get it out there. And it enables continuous rapid deployment because as we move to this notion of not just 1, 2, 3, 4 servers in many, many servers, we have to have the ability to do continuous deployment. And I'll show what that looks like. So it's bringing these teams together. Okay, so it means that you can rapidly move from development to test to production. So that really makes it easy for us to actually do that because you're creating a configuration file of a server, and it's created in a framework that is common to all of your viewers, which is the MOF framework, Microsoft Operations Framework. So you get a MOF file, and then that MOF file, once it's actually created in the way you want, you can bring that MOF file over from development to test to production, and it's the same file and the same configuration. So there's parts of this that can stay the same, and there's allowing us to. The flexible deployment option gives us ways to actually say, okay, I want one part to be, say I have different IP address for different servers. I can state, what I want to actually be for that. So DSC, how does it actually compare to traditional scripting? So traditional scripting is kind of all over the place, right? So, if you've ever done VB scripting or other types of scripting, there's an intent, there's a dependency, traditional scripts tend to be fairly technology specific. They tend to lack reboot resiliency. It's tough to get logging and error handling. There's dependency resolution. It's tough to get repeatable. So if you go down and you throw, with traditional scripting, if you throw a configuration down, you got an intent. Okay, so there's a configuration of how that actually wants to appear. It can be technology. A lot of scripting is technology specific. What kind of scripting have you done in the past, Ben? You've probably done VBS. You've probably done, what other ones are there?
Yeah, I've also done a lot
Windows
of
script, Windows scripting,
PowerShell, obviously.
There's scripting on Linux.
Yeah.
There's all that kind of stuff. Python, all that kind of stuff. That tends to be that traditional scripting tends to be very technology specific. We've used the Microsoft Operations Framework, which is more of an open standard. So when you look at traditional scripts versus the DSC type scenario, is we have a DSC engine. Okay, so we have a DSC engine that's built into Windows that handles dependency resolution, allows for reboot resiliency, logging, error handling, and repeatable automation. And that's the key thing, is having repeatable. Now I'm going to show you what this looks like because slides are sort of we want to see what this actually looks like. So I'm going to escape out of the slides for a minute, and I'm going to first of all take you through my environment. Now I just want to check back with you, Ben. You can see is that reasonably clear what you can actually see here?
It's clear. It's maybe just a little bit small on some monitors, but clarity is good.
It's not, this is just basically showing you my environment at the moment. And as you can see, I have a lot of VMs that I work with on a regular basis, but for different demos that I do. But essentially what I have is the ones that are running is currently my environment. Okay, so I have a DC. This environment was essentially built with the PowerShell deployment toolkit. Have you guys actually talked about that at all during this week?
We haven't this week. It is something we've presented on with the Singapore group before. Probably something we need to repeat again for the Australian meetup.
Right. So this particular group of VMs was incorporating PDT and DSC stuff to build out this environment. So you basically just run a script that creates the VMs. It goes and creates all the VMs for me, adds all the disks to it, adds the networking, creates the networks, does all this kind of stuff that I need to do from an automation point of view. So if you look at this, I only built these servers this week, right? So it was fairly quick for me to do that just with a PowerShell script. And then you log into the server and it'll go and do a bunch of other stuff. And so what I've got here is I've got a domain controller that has all my authentication. I've got a bunch of servers, and I'm going to add the web components to server 01. And I'm using that from a Windows 10 machine as my management machine. All right, so if I go over to my Windows 10 machine, the first thing I need to come back. You should be able to see that now. And what I need to be able to do is I first need to configure IIS on this box. So what I'm going to do is you can see the language that we're actually using with DSC is I'm going to do a configuration for an IIS website. And the node that I'm going to put that on is server 01. First thing I need to check is I need to check if a Windows feature is available. And the Windows feature we're looking for is IIS. We need to ensure that that's actually present. I think the last one, was it Wednesday or yesterday, I went through all what these all mean and all that kind of stuff. But and the name is web server. And then we also have to have ASP. So we have to have ASP be present on the box. All right. And so all I need to do is select this part of the code, and I need to run that. But first, before I do that, is I'm going to go into everybody's, oh crap, that's allowed. IE, oh, I don't have IE11. Why is it saying I can't load Edge on this machine? That is a bit of a hassle, isn't it? That sucks. Let me just, that's all right. We've got other ways to actually figure this out. So I'm going to go to a different box. I'm going to go over to server 2. There's more than one way to skin a cat, that's for sure. And we'll log on. See, everything with Windows 10 is so new.
Yeah, just upgraded my final machine today. I got my Windows 7 machine updated. So.
Did you do that directly?
Yeah, so my Surface, I got that upgrade a couple of days ago. On my Surface Pro 3, and then just had this legacy Windows 7 machine at home that got the update today. Beautiful. Had a little bit of an issue with the Qualcomm wireless driver, but otherwise beautiful.
All right, so I'm going to try to connect to server 1, and IIS is actually installed on that box. So I've already done part of this, right? So what you can see is that the base part of IIS is actually installed, right? So all you would have to do on that particular scenario to get IIS running on that box is to run this bit of code. Okay, so I'm going to go to this part here. I'm going to select that. I'm going to run that. Okay, so what it's going to tell you is that it has actually created my MOF file. All right, so it's created my server01 server01.mof file. Now I want to actually find out, first of all, is that feature actually installed? So I need to go and check. Now you notice there that I'm getting an error. Now I did that on purpose, Ben, so that you could see what's going on with Windows 10. Now, one of the biggest questions that we're actually getting with Windows 10 is where are the RSAT tools? Okay, so the remote server admin tools. Because you see that get-windows feature, that is a commandlet that is on Windows Server. It's not on Windows Client. But it comes with the RSAT tools. So the RSAT tools are not out yet. Okay, so the get-windows feature is not available for client machines yet. Okay, so you have to install the RSAT tools, which includes the get-windows feature. So what I need to do to show you what this looks like is go over to the server that I'm looking at, which is server 01, which of course is running Windows Server. It has the get-windows server feature, and what I want to do is run that to check and see if everything's actually there on that box. Now it's showing me that it's not there, right? So what I need to do now, go back over to my admin machine, is to go and apply my desired state. And I did verbose so that the viewers could actually see this in the background. And essentially what you're seeing here is that it's going out to check to see if the server has that has the web server role installed. It's getting the Windows feature. It's showing how long it's actually taking. And you see the LCM that's the running. That's our I think it's called Local Configuration Manager. That's the engine, the engine for DSC that's running. It's continuing, it's running the prerequisites and everything that needs to be installed for that web server. Now, if somebody came along to this box and they said, they took that off, we could just run this again and we could get that server back to a normal state. So while that's actually running, I want to show you another one on my local machine, which is this, what I call, this is one I got, if you go to, I don't know if you have show notes or anything for this, but if you go to aka.ms/DSC example, this example is up on GitHub, and you can download this. And the reason this was made available is that the first thing that administrators actually do is enable remote desktop on their servers that they need to manage. And you can do this all with DSC. Now, the DSC resource kit is no longer available. So the DSC resource kit has been replaced by the PowerShell Gallery. So the PowerShell Gallery, if you go to PowerShellGallery.com, I've put this in the end of my slides as a link for more resources. If you go up to PowerShell Gallery, you can actually go and see all the modules that are actually available. That's the PowerShell blog. That's not the one I want. This is where this script is there. And essentially what this is going to do is this is going to download the modules, X remote desktop admin and X networking. Because when we're enabling remote desktop on a machine, we first of all, we need to enable remote desktop, and we need to open up some ports on the machine so that we can actually connect to that machine and manage it. So the first thing we need to do is install this module. And it's going to check to see that I've got that. And to make it quicker for you guys on the video is that I've already downloaded this. This is just going to check and to make sure that I have the latest version. Okay, so that's all good. Then I need to go and generate my configuration mod file. Oops, so I'm doing this in between there. And I got a tip from one of the guys in the US if you're messing around with DSC, create a folder on your machine called DSC, because lots of parts of DSC actually save things to a lot of different weird locations, like in the PowerShell modules section or everything. If you create a folder called DSC, it's just an easy way for you to keep things kind of organized. So I'm going to output this out to /DSC. You can see it's created a localhost .mof file. And if I go over to that, what you can actually see is that I've got my DSC. There's my RDP. Okay, so there's my localhost mof file. Now I need to go and test the configuration to see if it's already true. To see what I'm trying to find out is I want to test and see if this machine actually has remote desktop enabled. All right, so I'm going to hit run that, and I'm going to format that into a list. So you can see all the stuff that it's going out and actually doing. All right, so it's returned a value to me to tell me that false. Okay, so is this machine in the desired state that I've defined in my mof file? And at this point, it's not in the desired state that I want it to be in. So it's very easy for me to go and apply my configuration that I need. And this is the part that's the real repeatable part of PowerShell DSC. So if some knucklehead comes along, and that never happens in our environments. Nobody ever makes changes that they're not supposed to, right? And so somebody comes along and they turn that setting off, right? So I'm going to go and test it again, and just to make sure that this is enabled. And so this is going to check that again. So let me move this guy up a little bit. And it's going to say that it's true. So we are in our desired state now. And then it's a very simple one. If people are getting used to what DSC can do and what they can actually do with their machine, is this remote desktop is great because you can go into remote settings here on your machine, and you can see that it's enabled allow remote desktops to this computer, and it's also set up our network authentication to be at the highest secure level. Right now, so if I go back and turn this off, and I go into remote settings again, and I run this again, you can see we've now ended up into a point of what we call configuration drift. So this particular machine is now out of compliance. It's not in its desired state. And we want to get it back into its desired state. And it's very simple. You don't have to run all this other stuff again, right? You don't have to run all this again. All you have to actually run is one line of PowerShell code, which we love that, don't we, Ben? is one line of PowerShell
Always
code.
one-liners.
Gotta love that. And this is your, because what it's going to do is it's going to apply the moff file that we've already defined as our desired state that we want it to actually be. And then when we go back into the properties of our machine, we can actually see, where is it? Oh my goodness. I want to go to this PC. And I'll go into system properties and remote settings. And you can see that's back on and we're back in our desired state. The other thing you can actually do as well is you can go further down. Is I want to verify the configuration. So I want to get my DSC configuration. Okay, so what this is telling you is that this is my DSC configuration. And essentially what I'm going to do here is, you see the configuration modules that I've downloaded from the PowerShell gallery. I'm using remote desktop. It's got no dependencies. The module name is X networking. And what X networking is doing is going to open up the remote desktop port, which is 3389. Okay, it's going to set it to allow. It's going to, the direction that it's going to open up in the firewall is inbound, and the display group is remote desktop. And you can see the protocols that it actually sets, the SIM class that it's using, all that kind of business that's there. The other thing you can do, and this is you can go in and check the DSC configuration status to see the status of that as well. To see, oh, actually, the one I wanted to do was not that one. Is this one here. This gives you details of the history. Okay, so what this is going to do is this is allowing you to check the history of this machine. How many times has it been taken out of configuration drift, and how many times have we had to push it back? You see that initial push that we've actually done, and DSC has this notion of push versus pull. We can push this down to that machine, or we can have pull servers that can store our DSC configurations that servers will pull that data from to keep them into compliance. And you see that the next ones that I've run these over and over again, is these are consistency pushes to make sure that we're in the consistent state. So that shows you the basic one for remote desktop. Now, we have, I'll go back to my IIS example. And I've got to go back to my machine there. Okay, so that's finished. All right, so it's gone and checked all the prerequisites. It's making sure that all that stuff. So what we want to do now is we want to go over and check that ASP.NET and all that stuff is installed. So we'll go over to server 1. And sorry about the changing back and forth, Ben, to different machines. Otherwise, I would have done this all on one. All right, now you notice that the bits that we need for that ASP.NET 4.5 is there and ready to go. So I'm going to jump back quickly to the slides, and then I'm going to go back to what do we do if that server falls out of compliance. Are there any, and that's a good time for us to kind of say, are there any questions? Is there any questions from the 2 people that are online at this point?
At the moment, we don't have any, guys. Yeah, jump in if you've got any questions, but none so far. I think at the moment, yeah, it's a good introduction so far. I can't think of any questions on my side.
All right, so that piece was really the setting up of the base part of the web server, and then that the little bonus recipe that we had for remote desktop. So there's a lot of that stuff that you can get from the PowerShell gallery. Last time I checked, there was 230 something modules up on PowerShellGallery.com. So they're Jeffrey Snover and the boys, and all the powers that be, that guy from Pluralsight who is far too energetic for one person. They're updating a lot of this stuff on that gallery, so I'll point to that. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about configuration drift. So with configuration drift, with a traditional script, we will pump that down to the server, and everything looks great. And the administrator's happy, he's getting the thumbs up, everything's cool bananas, and away we go. Right, and he has to get that out to multiple servers. Okay, so with the traditional script, he duplicates that onto multiple servers, and everything looks great, happy, everything's cool, we got ticks. But servers ultimately go out of compliance. And so with a traditional script, this is a difficult model where we have to send that script down again, and we don't have, and it's a difficult way that we actually do it. With DSC configuration, we have a similar scenario where we put that down to the box, and a server comes out of compliance. And what we can actually do is we can get that DSC configuration from a pull server. And we can automate this whole process. The administrator, with the traditional scripts, there's no real way for the administrator to know, or there's no way for us to automate this whole process. So we can automate the configuration drift through pull servers. And so that allows us to actually make sure that everything is going well. Okay, so now what we want to make sure is, now that we've got our web server going, we're going to add a little bit more to that web server. So let's go back over to our configuration. Now, what I want to remind you guys is that this server itself, if I go over to server 2, no, I don't want to restart my machine. It has the basic IIS components on it. That's it. We have no website, nothing going on that particular box. If I go over to server 1, here you can see that there is an inetpub directory, and we just got the basic stuff in there. We've got no web server there. That's all been installed. Everything's cool to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back over to our admin machine, and I'm going to go to this guy. I'm going to run this particular script. Let me just move this guy out of the way. Now it's pretty much the same script, but we've just added a couple of things to this. And essentially what we're doing is we're adding a website to this. Now it's going to go through and it's going to check that, first of all, we have IIS installed, we have the web server feature, we have ASP, but then we've added another control for this for web content. Okay, so we are going to grab some source files from /lab files /source, and this is the Fourth Coffee Bakery website. If you've ever seen a Microsoft demo, you've probably seen this website before, where we're going to copy it, and we're going to recurse that to true. Now we got some logging that's actually there, and we're going to go ahead and actually do that, right? So let's go ahead and do that part. Okay, so we've created our moff file. All right, so the moff file's been created. Now we haven't applied anything to the server yet at this point in time. All we've done is we've created the moff file. Now what we need to do is go and apply our DSC configuration. This is where it's going to go and, oh, bummer. What did that say? Let's see, this is all live, folks. We can have Ben's trying to figure out what did it failed to execute set target function of the given path, dlab files. Oh, that's okay. I can fix that up. Let me just dlog files. What was the path again?
It's your MSI file.
Yeah, that's easy enough. I can fix that. Let's go over to server 1. See, we're fixing this stuff on the fly live, hey? I think I forgot to copy one part. Hello, assets. That's logging. Should be there.
It's all right. You're still doing better than Steve yesterday. He had a few issues with typos and stuff. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. The assets events logging 64.msa could not be found. /files assets. Let's just double check to make sure that's right. I don't think it'll. I think that's just the logging part. It won't really affect the fact of the web server events logging 64.msi lab files assets. That's right, right? Okay. Anyway, so let's go back and see if we've got a website. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to server 02, and we're just going to refresh this. And we don't have a website. Maybe we do. It's all right. We can do this stuff on the fly, no problems. Let's just get that. Yeah, that should understand. That should work. That should work. Okay. Not a problem, because I have a way of getting access to these VMs. So if you just bear with me, we can do this on the fly, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I don't know if you know the guys that run our labs around the world, HOL Systems. .com. We have some VMs that are that's never come up before. I think it's cloud dot. Yes, that's the one. Not a problem. Just a second. Bear with me. Sorry about this, Ben.
I jinxed you. I think
you
Steve's ahead now.
You didn't jinx me. It's all good. I know where all this stuff is, so it's all good. I just gotta open up a deck that has the link in it, the exact link for this. It's lucky I know where all my stuff is. All right, it's cloud.hol systems. Copy paste is our friend, huh? All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just logging into a system that allows me to spin up those VMs really quickly, and I'll just go through the second part of it where we're actually adding the IIS part to it. So I'm just going to go and launch this desired state, and I'll launch it in. You can still see my screen, okay? And we're going to do the web.
Yeah, no problem.
So this takes you a couple of seconds. So what I'll do is I'll just come back to the slides while that's actually going on. And I want to kind of talk about the different phases that we're talking on. So let me just go back in there. All right, so the components that we have is there's that authoring phase. So what we're doing there is that we can use PowerShell, obviously. There's may include imperative as well as declarative code. And you saw some of the code that we were using for that in those modules. So we use declarative syntax extensions, schema-driven IntelliSense, and schema validation for the early binding. Then there's the staging, which is our fully declarative configuration representative. And we use, you might have heard of DMTF, which is the Desktop Management Task Force, and we use standard MOF instances, and its configuration is calculated for all the nodes that we want to actually apply this DSE state to, and that's our staging area. That contains our data. And on my machine, you saw that my staging area was where that MOF file was stored was a local resource, but you can put that onto pool servers if you wanted to do that. And then we have what we call the make it so phase. This is our declarative configuration, which is that's supposed to be, I think that's supposed to be rectified or reified through imperative providers. So we have a local configuration store, which you saw that before when it would say LCM, that was our local configuration manager. There's a parser and a dispatcher and resources. So this is our make it so phase to make it so that we want to avoid that configuration drift, and we want to make sure the servers are in a consistent state. We have two ways to do this. We have a push model or a pull model. Okay, so the push model was me pushing that out to my machine to say, I want this to be remote desktop to be on this machine, or I want to have IIS on that box. Okay, so the push model pushes it to the staging area, and then we push that from the staging area down to the server. It's slightly different in the pull model in that we have a pull server in the middle. Okay, so this pull server contains the DSC data and all the modules that we actually need. We only do that once, and then the servers will, the actual servers that we're trying to keep in compliance will pull the data from that to their machines to make sure that they stay in compliance. So let's go back and see if we can do that part with the web server. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to my admin box, and I'm going to go and open up ICE as administrator. Doing this all on the fly for you, Ben.
Looking good.
So I'm going to open up, and you notice basically that's the same stuff that we were doing before. And you can see, yeah, look, see, all I did is change this from the C drive to a D drive because I wanted to copy from a different location. So anyway, life goes on, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go and run this script to make sure that everything is good to go on our server. So we're going to hit that, and whoops, not that one. I want to run this one. Okay, so that's our MOF file. Okay, so we've created our MOF file, and away we go for that. And now I need to DSC, where is it? Sorry, let me just go back. Good thing is that you can copy from one area to another area. So we're just going to put this in here. Oh, I can't do it from there. Not a problem. Let me just move this guy over. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to configure our DSC. I'm going to start dash DSC, doing our IntelliSense. And what do we want to do? Dash computer name. And the computer name is server 1. In this case, I changed the server name and the dash path. And it is IIS website and dash wait dash verbose so they can see the output. And let's run that. Crossing fingers and toes.
Yeah. It's all good.
I don't know how long it's going to, because this is on servers that are on servers in Tampa, Florida. So I don't know how much traffic they've got going on at the moment. So, oh, bloody hell. See, it's got an error in there as well.
Sorry, that's way too small for me to read.
Oh, that's weird. Okay. All right, well, let's pretend that we saw a really beautiful coffee website with muffins and all that kind of stuff, right? So let's go and walk you through what the rest of the stuff that we were going to do. Okay, so what we're going to do is run that configuration. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the server, and what I might actually do, I don't like things to not fail. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to copy this folder over to the C drive. And I'm just going to see if that helps. And I'm just going to change the code slightly to be C, because that's what it was originally. So let's just go with what they wanted to do originally and see if that helps. So we're going to run this again. All right, so that part was okay. Oh, I got to update the DSC configuration because I've oops, that's not where I wanted to type. So let's then do that should be okay. We'll just put a dash force on this because we don't care because they're just demo servers. Bugger. I can't believe it's saying that that's not there, because it definitely is there. If we go into lab files, we go to assets, there's our advanced logging.msi file.
Does it have a space in lab files? I think in your code it's all on one word without a space in the directory name.
You're all right. Yes, sir. You are correct. Well done. See that? Live stuff, man. So I'm trying to organize tech ed content and do a lot of this other stuff, so it's an interesting one. Oh, bugger off.
Excellent. An unknown error occurred.
Yeah, that's friggin' helpful, isn't it? Let's go over to inet pub and see if we've got some files in there. www root. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like we've copied over. All right, let's do an update. Let's just go back here. All right. Yeah, it wants to do the force thing, eh? All right. Hey, look at that. It worked that time. So you can say to people online, trust me, he does get there in the end. Function did not succeed. Which one is this? Something in the MSI file. I think we do have more stuff on the server. Let's refresh the website. Oh, damn. Can't believe it. Did it copy it? Yeah, it's copied all the stuff. It's probably just now what you're seeing here is that I've copied all my data. Okay, so I've copied my website over to that particular server. That should start serving that website. There shouldn't be anything we have to do. Now, what if a user came along and they did this and they went and removed a particular item, right? That never happens in managing servers. You might have some dude that gets disgruntled and he decides to do something bad before he leaves. He's getting fired and he leaves and he goes, okay, I'm going to go and whack this web server out and get rid of it. All right, so we're going to say, oh yes, that sounds good. I'm going to get rid of all the that website's going to be completely gone, right? And if we go back over to our server and we refresh the page, you can see all the stuff has been removed. Oh, is it gone?
It's just the images folder. It's okay. It's gone.
Yeah,
I was watching.
It's gone. Yeah, the images folder is gone, right? So it's taken some stuff out of there. And then we can go back and we can just run this command again. And that's our that's our code to go and add this again. And that's going to go and check the state of that and make sure that we get it. Obviously, there's some sort of error there at the moment. But if we go back to that server, it's kind of, and we go to inetpub and go to www root, you see the images folder is back. All right, so that's putting it back into the state that we want it to be. And I know that part didn't work, but there's something going on with the server at the moment, but that's just life in the big city. And essentially this is really what DSC is about, is to say, I want to go and declare what my website should be like, which is there. And then I want to have that make it so phase, which is running our DSC configuration. And the server I want to put it on, and then you can put multiple servers on this. It's not, I'm just doing it against one servers. If I wanted to go and add, I could go and say, okay, I can just put, comma, the node that I want to put it on, comma, server 02, server 03, server 04. And then that way, what you're doing is that you're really making the scale of this much higher. Okay, so you're able to actually manage these servers, and you can see here I'm setting up a website. Imagine if I had needed to have a website for 10 servers. I could do that pretty quickly across those, rather than going to each server and doing it individually. So it's really just telling, kind of showing. And we've also got a SharePoint one. So if you want to create a SharePoint server, so this is looking, what this is doing is this is going to go and right, we want to set up a SharePoint server, but there's some prerequisites that we need to have on that server. Now, you as as a SharePoint administrator may or may not know what those prerequisites are. You don't want to go and get all the dependencies. You create this declarative state once. Okay, so you say, I'm going to say, okay, I need to install all these pieces, and I have to have them on my server ready to rock and roll. Okay, and so you declare that. That creates your moth file, and then after that, you can go and then set up your SharePoint farm. So it's pretty easy to be able to actually do that. All right, so we'll just come back to this and summarize as we get to the top of the hour. Isn't it bear o'clock by now? I'd say, Ben. Certainly in our part of the world.
On a Friday, that's about noon, isn't it?
Maybe. So really what we're trying to do around continuous deployment is to be able to continuously move from development, test, and production. And what we're trying to do with DevOps is we're trying to make sure that the dev teams, because what you end up with at the production end is the sysadmins are sitting in the production side, and they don't tend to get involved in the development of the test phase too much. They just get code dropped over the fence to them. And that particular code, they may not have tested in their environment. This allows them to actually do a lot more, get a lot more involved in the continuous deployment lifecycle. So DSC enables us to deliver the configuration of our servers and the way that our servers are actually there as code. So you saw the code that we were using to configure our website. There's conflict detection. It's a single source of the truth, okay? And that's in our moth file. In our moth file is a single source that can be rapidly deployed out to multiple environments. And it's a common tool set for devs and operations. I think I've been talking to a lot of IT pros around making sure that they're using DevOps practices. There are I can show you some links later on for DevOps practices. One of the things I would recommend is to read the Phoenix Project by Gene Kim, which is a book on DevOps practices. There's also a link that I'll show you in a second to what it means for the IT pro. I think it was written by Don Jones, who you probably know, Ben, who's the PowerShell MVP, and what it means for an IT pro to be in a DevOps world. So this is really going to help us around this whole notion of continuous deployment. Now, what's an example of continuous deployment? You said before you upgraded to Windows 10. We would have never been able to deploy to deliver a product like Windows 10 if we weren't practicing DevOps internally. Windows 10 project itself was a monumental DevOps project, right? So there were some statistics that we saw about 14 million people upgrade in the first 24 hours and 67 million upgrade in the first 48 hours. Those kind of numbers and scale we can't achieve if we are not using technologies around continuous deployment. So our internal teams, when developing Windows 10, there was a lot of DevOps practices going on at that, and that produces cloud scale. So allowing us to have on-demand system creation and teardown. So being able to rapidly deploy systems really, very quickly. So DSC decouples. Now what you're actually looking at here is the intent. It decouples. We have a configuration part. You saw that configuration piece at the top of that creates my moth file. This is my intent. This is what I actually want to be, what I want it to actually look like. Then the start DSC configuration was the make it so phase. And the DSC engine handles all that. So they do all the lifting. They do the heavy lifting. Now, I've heard this word in dependency way. I'd have to look that up on Wikipedia. I'm not sure what that actually means, but anyway, it's there. So, so we have a structural configuration. It stays the same irrespective of the environment. We want to make sure that we're declaring what a domain controller looks like. We're declaring what a web server looks like. We're declaring what a DHCP server looks like, and it stays the same regardless of whether you go from dev to production to test, sorry, from test to production, it stays the same. And if you compare that to Windows 10, is that we have different rings that we have for Windows 10, and we were able to actually make sure that things were tested and before it got out to you guys. You talked about your Windows 7 machine. The stuff that went on behind the scenes before that even got to you was tested by millions and millions of people, and that's a massive DevOps project for us to be able to do that. Where it's an environmental configuration. So as environments changes as system goes through different environments, and this is talking about dev, test, and production. Now I've kind of done that part, and this is if you want to look at configuration and DSC, this is the kind of one of the slides that the internal teams use on a regular basis that seems to resonate with geeks, right? A lot of geeks are Trekkies. So you've got Captain Picard up the top going, I want it like this. I just want to go really, really fast in space. And I'm going to want to go as fast as I possibly can, right? And then you got the poor guy down. I don't even know who's the guy at the bottom. I can't remember because I only remember Star Trek with James. What is it? The other guy. I didn't watch the
Yeah, sorry. I
can't remember who this guy is,
but
but he's the poor sap down the bottom that has to actually go and set the stuff that Captain Picard has actually set. So Captain Picard says, I need IIS to run really, really well while we're speeding through space, right? And then this guy has to go and do the automation, make sure that what he says in his structural configuration is actually applied to all the servers that we're going to be using in our environment. Okay, so he's the guy that has to do it. Now, a lot of the IT pros I talk to would go and do this in a manual fashion. Go and install IIS, do all that kind of stuff. If we can automate this whole process, you're going to make you're going to make a lot less work for yourself, and you're going to eliminate a lot of the fat fingering that goes on in enterprises, and make sure that you get the stuff down there in the correct fashion. So that's kind of where we are. We're at continuous deployment and test and production, making sure we're moving through those. Now, we also DSC in Azure. There's some interesting things around Azure itself. You can do this in now. Azure itself doesn't directly support DSC, but you can do it in the VMs that are running in Azure. If you get my drift, right? So you can't use DSC to build out an environment in Azure. So you have to configure your environment in Azure, and then you can actually go and run DSC against those servers. And all you have to do in the configuration of that code, I was talking when I had in the code there, server 01, you have to just put in the blah, 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 cloudapp.net. So you got to just point it at the right server that's in Azure, and you can run DSC configurations against your servers in Azure to make sure that you're avoiding configuration drift on your servers in Azure as well. You can do dynamic provisioning using Azure extensions, multi-tenancy, and environments. I'm going to skip that part. That's our test, production environment, provisioning. So this is really saying how you would actually do it to publish to a blob, to an Azure blob. This is just an example of how we would do this to an Azure blob. We can publish it up to that, take that configuration file and move it up to Azure. And that's just a kind of an idea of what this looks like and what it would kind of what it would kind of look like in Azure. I'm just going to move through this pretty quickly because you have to still have the Azure VM actually sitting up in Azure. You could store your configuration file in an Azure blob if you wanted to, and that could be your pool server. Okay, so you could have it set up that way so that you have a resource up in Azure that's always up and running, and that's your production environment. So how does it actually relate to other types of scenarios? So Visual Studio in release, Visual Studio Continuous Deliver Pipeline is being rebuilt on top of DSC. So we're starting to see these tools actually coming together. You have to configure an IaaS VM, VM first before you can use DSC. SCVVM will start to use this very soon, can call new CloudOS virtual machine role can call DSC during provisioning and leverage it for a configuration piece. So that part can actually have. Partner ecosystem. So we've got a lot of active engagements with Chef, Puppet, Ansel, Octopus, SaltStack, CF Engine. So those kind of engagements are going on right now. So this Ben, is something what this is just what does it actually look like from an architectural point of view. Okay, you've got your DSC resources at the bottom. Those are those MOF files that I was talking about before. You have your engine does either a push or a pull. It has reporting, it has logging. PowerShell interfaces sits on top of the DSC engine, and then allows us to be able to do those in a repeatable fashion. Okay, so that's kind of how it actually looks. Now, a lot of people ask us, where is DSC at this point? Well, the simple answer to that is it's everywhere. It's released with PowerShell v4 with Server 2012 R2. So you've got, and I'll show you the different modules that were actually available at that time. It's updated in Windows 10 to PowerShell v5. And the WMF framework was updated. When was the last time it was updated? The WMF framework 5 was probably updated
it was in April, I think.
April or May or somewhere around that time. Yeah. But if you've got Windows 10 on your machine, you've got that anyway. Okay, so if you upgrade to Windows 10, you've got that. So that's it's also available on Azure. They're making it available on Nano Server. Believe it or not, they're making it available on IoT devices as well. So DSC will be supported on Windows 10 on IoT devices because IoT has a very big automation piece to that. So we have to have the ability to do that. So that's there as well. So some more. So these are the resources. These were the original ones that came with Windows Server 2012 R2. So Windows feature, Windows process, environment. We had an update that came out soon after that that gave us X website, computer IP address, DSC web service, all these other different things. Then we had some more that came out after that, and then a whole bunch more after that. These are just the updated ones. And right now, if you look at PowerShell Gallery, there's about 230 odd, and that's changing all the time. What you saw me use before was a remote desktop admin. So the remote desktop admin one to be able to do this. You see them all with the X at the beginning of them. If you go up to PowerShell Web Gallery, you can actually go and have a look at those. So PowerShell Debate, into summary, what it actually does is it simplifies configuration, prevents configuration drift, flexible deployment options, and enables this whole notion of around continuous delivery. So with that, that's about all I had. What I wanted to give you guys is links. Now, Ben, I can make this slide deck available to you. And in that link that you're seeing there is a link to a much longer course on PowerShell DSC. Okay, that's from Jeffrey Snover and what's that guy's? Can't remember the guy's name from Pluralsight. He's a bald guy that's got a lot of energy, and it's a 2-day course that's been recorded, so people can watch that and get much into far more detail than I was able to go through in an hour. PowerShellGallery.com, PowerShell.org, which is run by John Jones and the community. There's a good book up on PowerShell.org, an ebook called the DSC book. So if people want to have a look more into DSC, they can download the PowerShell, the DSC book up on PowerShell.org, and of course the PowerShell team blog. And Ben, there's probably more stuff that you've links than that you have from a resources point of view, but that's all related to DSC.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot for Jeff. That was a great start for people into DSC, I think, and yeah, definitely be lots more talks in the coming months from other contributors, I'm sure, and as we get into it, because it's a big part of the PowerShell community now, and definitely something that people need to be looking into. Just back on Nano Server, I believe with Nano Server, it's set up to provision from scratch using DSC, right? So right out of the box,
so
the agent's there and ready to go.
Yeah, Nano Server is a smaller footprint that's coming with Windows Server 2016. So with the next version of Windows Server, we're definitely moving to a more PowerShell management. This is going to may or may not upset the admins that like the GUI, but the default install for Windows Server 2016 is a command line only PowerShell environment. Nano Server itself cannot be managed in any other way other than by PowerShell Remote. Right?
So about time.
That's it, and it's only 350 meg in size. So this is about scale. The other thing that we've added, and I forgot to tell you this before, is in Windows 10 we have what we call PowerShell Direct. So in Windows 10, and I'll show you a machine that I've got running Windows 10 at the moment, unless MSIT has implemented their power saving on that machine. Anyway, what it means is that if I've got a laptop here that's got 8 gig of RAM, right? And what I can do is I can enable Hyper-V on this machine. And what I can do is if I'm running a VM with Server 2016 and the technical preview, I can do an enter PS session, to be able to get into another machine from the host to that VM without using the networking piece. I can go directly to it from the host to the guest. This is what they're calling PowerShell Direct. That's new in Windows 10, and you have to have Windows Server 2016 as the client in that as a VM. I can even turn off the networking. I don't even have to have a NIC card on that box, and I can do an enter PSS session and go interface directly with PowerShell without having to remote into that machine. awesome thing that's actually happening with PowerShell Direct.
Oh, cool. Thanks for that, Jeff. Yeah.
So yeah, the nano server thing. Yeah. So we're really moving to a new way of managing these servers. So I think you and I have been saying to these guys for a long time, better learn PowerShell, dude, or you're going to be you're going to be in trouble. So it's evident with what's coming out of the new versions of Windows Server. Like the default is a command line only interface. And then even the second one, you can only add Server Manager as your GUI. You have to go in the next step to actually add all the GUI components. So it's a really quite a 2 or 3 step process to get the GUI on a Windows Server 2016 box. So it's a little bit, they're really pushing towards this whole manage, and this is the only way you can do this at scale. Is we're talking hundreds, thousands of servers, that they manage in Azure. They're not going into the GUI for every one of them, that's for sure. So that's where PowerShell's going to play.
Yeah, but even if you've only got 3 or 4, it's about consistency as well. So,
Correct.
Repeatability and making sure that you can actually make things work. Right?
Yeah, and when I first saw DSC, I was like, wow, this is really cool, because this is finally an SOE type environment for servers. Because if you deploy an SOE to a client machine, that is your kind of master gold image in the way you want that machine to be delivered to the user. Well, now what we can say is that I want these servers to all look the same. But then if something changes after the fact, I can go and put it back on really, really quickly.
Yeah, there's actually a technology to enforce your SOE rather than it just being a nice shiny document that everybody screws up the second it's out in the environment.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And look, those sites that I was talking about. This is the where is it? The PowerShell. I had it open in another website. Hang on just a sec. If you go to Power. So I'm a cyclist, so there's all these other bloody things that people want me to get into these. So you go to PowerShell Gallery, and if you go to PowerShell Gallery, 243 modules right now. Now you can either go to the gallery and you can go and have a look at the different modules that are available, or what you can do is you can just go down into PowerShell and you can do a find dash module, and that will list out all the different modules that are currently up on the PowerShell blog, so that you can quickly go up to this and you can see all the ones that you want. One of the great things is that, that MBA course I was talking about that Jeffrey Snover and those guys did, they actually did a module called MBA, right? So everything that they did in that course, and I don't want to take away from the course itself, they made available as modules for each of the days. Right, so if you go in install dash module and you type that particular module, you'll get all the scripts that they used during the DSC course that they did, so that you can go and play with it and you can use it yourself. Jeffrey Snover, so Jeffrey Snover put that up, and you can just go in and install that module and you can have a look at it. And then when the module gets installed, or you can use the save module if you want to just see what's in the module, and if you do the save module, what that does is that puts it into a folder on your machine. And I've just done the desired state configuration one, and that tells me the version number and all the resources and everything that's there. So that's all the desired state configuration one that's got all the examples and all this kind of stuff, so people can have a look at that. But it's 6 o'clock on a Friday night. What are we doing talking about this?
I know. I think it's time to wrap it up. But yeah, Jeff, thanks so much for your time. And
no problem.
Yeah, it'll be up on YouTube for everybody who missed out. And yeah, that's the end for PowerShell Week. So thanks everyone for their time. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for running this. It's a good initiative. Good job.
No problem at all.
See you guys.